All right, so this is page 2. I'm afraid some of these I'm not quite sure what the answer, because it's one of those things that you only know what the teacher means because she has shown it that way in class. And some of these questions I'm not so sure how she taught it now in a certain way. So it's not very clear what she means to me. All right, so number 1, inverse proportion is also known as the indirect. Yes, this is true. Oh, let's get a different color. So this is true. Indirect and inverse, same thing. The second ratio in an indirect proportion should be equated to the inverse of the first ratio. I'm not so sure what that means. The second ratio in the indirect proportion should be equated to the inverse. Yeah, I don't know what that means. So yeah, you may have to check with your teacher on that one. In a partitive proportion, we have to use the sum to multiply the terms. Yeah, I don't know what she means by sum of what. So this is one of those things, like it's within the class. You guys know it because that's how she taught it. So I'm not so sure what she basically means by that. A quantity or whole will be shared in proportion that is indirect. So I feel like this is false because sharing in proportion is more like partitive proportion and not indirect. Okay, both terms in indirect proportion increases. Both terms in direct proportion increases. This could be a true or at the same time. It could also be false because they could both increase or they could both decrease. So I'm not so sure. I just feel like it's not very well worded question. Sorry about that. Okay, so let's move on to the next one. Number 6, when solving for the percentage or the base, write first the rate as a fraction. Well, you can write it as a fraction. That could be true, but you could also write it as a decimal. So I don't know which is the true or false part here, that it can only be written as a fraction, or that it could, or that, uh, so this is one of those things that it could be a true thing because it's true that you can write it as a fraction, but it's the same time you could also write it as a decimal. So it's your choice. Number 7, the percentage refers to the value obtained by getting a percent of a given number or quantity. Yes, that's true. We multiply the percentage by the rate to find the base. Okay, so the formula is rate times base equals percentage. So we multiply the percentage by the rate to find the base. So obviously this is false because you multiply the rate, the rate by the base to find the percentage. Rate is the original number. This is, I'm sorry, but this is a very poorly worded question, but I feel like she probably means the base here. So I'm just gonna say false, but that's a really badly worded, I'm sorry. In 75% of 250, if in what? In 75% of 250 is what number? The missing part is the percentage. I think this is if. If 75% of 150 is what number? The missing part is, oh, okay. All right. Okay, so I guess in this problem, in 75% of 150 is what number? Okay. The missing number is the percentage. Okay, so the percent sign, that's your rate. After the of is the base. So therefore, we're looking for the percentage. So therefore, this is true. Okay. All right, let's move on. All right, so what is this thing? It says, Identify if the problem involves direct, inverse, partitive, proportion. Write D if it's direct, write I. Indirect, P if it's partitive, on the blank in front of the numbers. Okay. All right, so remember direct. Direct means both variables go up or both of them goes down. Indirect means opposite of the given happens the result. Partitive is when you are given ratios of parts. Okay. The 3 movie tickets in Manila cost $600, 600 pesos. How many tickets can you buy for? Okay, so tickets cost. So if you think about, so these are your variables, tickets and cost. Okay, so if you increase your ticket, do you think the cost will also increase, or if it will decrease? Okay, so if they both go up, the more tickets you buy, the more costly it'll be, right? So therefore, this is a direct because the tickets and the cost, they both go up, or they could both go down. Okay. Next, what is the greatest number if 200 is divided in the ratio of? So you have 3 parts here, 1, 2, 3, 3 parts, and you have a whole thing. So therefore, this is a partitive type of problem. All right, letter B, write P if the missing number is a percentage, B if base. Okay, so remember to review, after the word of, that will be your base. Okay, rate has some kind of percent next to it, and the other one is the percentage. Okay, so 15%. So this is percent, that's your rate. This is the of, so therefore this is your base. So therefore this one right here is your percentage. Okay. N of, so therefore this is the base, the 48 is the base. Is this one doesn't have a percent, so therefore this has got to be the percentage. So therefore your N is your rate. That's the percent. That's the one that's missing. 36 is 72% of N. So percent, 72%, this is the rate. 36 doesn't have, of here. So therefore this one right here is your base, and this is your percentage. So therefore this is base. All right. Okay, so for this, I think the best way is for you to try to answer them. So pause this if you'd like, and answer them on your own. And after that, you can check your work or not. It depends on what you want. Okay, the food in the freezer can feed 100 boys in 60 days. So when you have a ratio and proportion problem, you start thinking, what are the 2 or 3 variables that are being compared? And so in this case, you have 100 boys. So therefore, they're talking about boys in 60 days. So they're talking about boys in days, right? So the food in the freezer can feed 100 boys in 60 days. Suppose 50 boys join the group. How long will it take for them to consume the food in the freezer? So before you start solving, you have to start thinking first, is this a direct problem? Is this a direct proportion? Is this inverse or indirect, or is this a partitive? So if you think about that, if you have the same amount of food, the more people who will eat it, what will happen? Will it take longer if you have more people to eat the food, or will it take shorter if you have more people, knowing that you have the same amount of food? Okay. So if you said that this is inverse or indirect, then yes, you're right. But before we solve this, let me give you a summary of how to solve different ratios, 2 ratios and proportion problem. All right, so if you have a direct problem, okay, and the other one is indirect or inverse. Okay, that's the same thing. All right, assuming your 2 things are boys and days. All right. So I'm not talking about this particular problem, all right, just in general. So let's say you are talking about boys and days. It could be It could be hours and score or whatsoever. Just two things, okay? Once you decide if it's a direct problem, or once you decide if it's an indirect problem, you have different ways of solving them, okay? Assuming it is a direct problem, then your ratio will be something like this. Boys divided by days. So meaning the two things that you are making a ratio of, you divide them, equals, on the other hand, boys over days. Okay, this is for a direct problem. So the two items, the two variables, you divide them, equals, you divide them, right? Now, if it is an indirect problem, okay, I don't know what happened there. If it's an indirect problem, what happens is instead of dividing, you will do, okay, I need to change that. So it'll be boys. Instead of dividing them, you will multiply boys times days equals boys times days. Okay. All right. So in a direct problem, you divide the two variables, but in an indirect problem, you multiply the two variables. Okay. All right. So in this problem, going back, oops, I think I got the wrong problem now. All right, so going back to this problem, so the boys 100 boys 60 days. So obviously this is an indirect problem, right? This is an indirect because the more people to share the food, the less number of days it'll take to consume that food. Okay, so you have boys, and then the other one is days. All right. So the first, since this is an indirect, you will have a multiplication. Oh, wrong spelling. Multiplication sort of equation. So it'll be like boys, the first boys times days equals boys times days. So this is just like your cheat sheet, okay? So the first situation is that you have 100 boys, 60 days. So 100 boys times 60 days. That's one situation. And then the other one is suppose 50 boys join. So therefore, you will have, on the second situation, you have 150 boys because 100 plus 50 times, well, how long will it take to consume the food? So that's what you don't know, right? Okay, so that's your equation because this is an indirect problem. So now you will multiply the 60 times 100, you have 6,000 equals 150x. And so now you will divide this one by 150, both sides. So therefore your x, this one will cancel out, 150 by 150. And then this one here, you will have 615, that's 40, I think 40, yeah. So now that means, what does that mean? Well, that means it'll take 40 days to consume if there are 150 boys. And that should make sense, right? If it'll take 100 boys to eat that food in 60 days, if you have more boys, then therefore it'll take less number of days. It'll take them 20 days less to finish the food. Okay, I hope that makes sense. All right, number 2. All right, a jar has 180 marbles. If 60 of the marbles are yellow, what percent of the marbles are? And it was cut off, so I don't know what's the actual question. Okay, so let's just make up some questions here. What percent of the marbles are? I don't know. So let's say, let's have 2 questions here. What percent of the marbles are yellow? Okay, and the second possible question is not yellow. Okay, so I'm gonna solve this one twice because the picture was cut off. All right, so a jar is 180 marbles. If 60 marbles are yellow, what percent of the marbles are yellow? So remember, percent, that's rate, right? So you're looking for rate. So this means this is number of yellow over total marbles. Okay, I can't spell. All right, equals, well, how many yellow? You have 60, and then total marbles is 180. That means that's 1/3, so 0.33. Repeating, you're 33 or 3. So that means this is 33.3% yellow. Now, if the question is how many percent is not yellow, then your rate would be number of not yellow divided by total marbles. Okay, so if you have 60 of them are yellow, then therefore not yellow will be 120. That means 180 minus 60. So 120 over 180 is equal to 0.66, like repeating. So therefore that's equal to 66.6%. So this is yellow, 33.3% are yellow, 66.6% not yellow. So just check for whatever is the actual question. All right, let's do next one. All right. This is Bruce receives a weekly allowance of 360 if he spent 80% of the amount already. I guess this is what's left with him. So if he spent 80%, so you can do, so this is a problem, like this is like your rate, right? Because it has a percent of the amount. So this amount represents the 360. So this is your base. And so let's find how much did he spend. So let's look at how much did he spend first. Once you know how much did he spend, then you can subtract that, right? So that's your percent. So that will be, this is gonna be the rate times the base. Okay, so your rate is 80% times 360, or equal to 0.8 times 360, which is equal to, I don't know what that is. I don't have a calculator. So let's see, 360 divided by 5. Just don't mind this, I just don't have a calculator. 735, 102, 72, 8, 6, 657. Okay, so he spent 57. Oh, no. No, that's not right. $72 times 4. If you have a calculator, you should just do this by calculator. I just so happen to not have 72 times 4. 828. Okay, so this is equal to 288. Okay, now let's recap because I have like a lot of extra stuff here. So don't mind this. So you want to find out how much did he spend? Well, he spent 80% of the amount. So 80% of means times 360. And so when you simplify that, that's 288 pesos. So he spent 288 pesos out of 360. So what's left? What's left now? Well, what's left? That's just gonna be original amount minus spend. Okay, whatever he spent. All right, so this is 360 minus 288. And whatever is that answer, that would be, I think that's 72. Yeah, so 72 pesos is the amount that that's left of him. So that's one way to solve it. Another way would be an easier one. So if he spent 80%, so he had 20% left, right? This is what's left percentage-wise. So the amount, so percentage, remember your formula for percentage is, so remember like rate times base equals percentage. So this is another way of solving it, which is probably easier. So the rate of how much is left is 20% of 360. You don't know that, so that's 0.20 times 360. You don't know that, so that will be 72, and that's the answer, which is the same thing. So one way is to get how much he spent and then subtract it from 360, or just get the percentage of the remainder and then multiply it by 360. Either way, you'll get the correct answer. All right, next one. Oh, I think that's it. Okay, I think that's it. Okay, so I hope this helps. If you have any question, just let me know and we can easily make verification clarification. Bye.